everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The lost city of Ratanaba.
The ruins of a city named Ratanaba are said to exist somewhere deep in the Amazon jungle.
This city has never been discovered, yet rumor has it that it was once the capital of the world. The ruins of this place are supposedly buried somewhere in Brazil's Mato Grosso state, and there are said to be tunnels stretching across South America that all lead to the ancient capital. The lost city of Ratanaba is probably a myth. The tunnels were said to connect points across the known world with the capital. Great leaders from faraway nations would allegedly travel through the tunnels to meet in Ratanaba. Some believe the city stood millions of years ago, while others think it was likely only a few thousand years before today. The issue is that the story is full of holes, and the archaeological data is controversial at best. Eduardo Neves from the Center for Amerindian Studies at the University of Sao Paulo said, "Ratanaba is a real delirium." He then went on to say that this story doesn't make any sense. Perhaps the details of the city have become murky over the years, but there are some unusual discoveries that were made in the Brazilian Amazon to suggest that the city did exist at one point. It could be one of many lost cities covered by the jungle. Aerial images show symmetrical lines carved across huge stretches of jungle that sort of look like collapsed passageways beneath the earth. But as of now, nobody has found the ruins of Ratanaba.
What do you think? Myth or real lost city? Let me know in the comments below. And now for number 9. But first, I want to give a big thank you to Tazilla Simon for the amazing super thanks. Thank you so much for your support. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe and join the family for more videos about amazing discoveries and lost civilizations.
Number 9. The Amazon's Tipui Mountains.
The Tipui Mountains of the Amazon are some of the most spectacular landscapes in the world.
The Amazon jungle isn't just a flat land of trees and monkeys swinging from vines. It's also home to a lot of mountains and mysterious geological formations. The Tipui Mountains in the Amazon basin are home to a secret world of subterranean caverns and hidden waterfalls. The area is in such an isolated part of the world that it wasn't visited by scientists until very recently. Francesco Sauro from the University of Bologna in Italy just finished a 40-day expedition into one of the world's last unexplored regions.
The scientists explored the Imawariyota in Venezuela, which holds miles of tunnels composing one of the largest known cave systems in the world. The walls are made of quartz, and organic acids bubble in the cave streams, turning the water red.
The stalactites look like billowing clouds of smoke, and the stalagmites resemble bulbous mushrooms. Here, colonies of microorganisms work together to build bacterial skyscrapers. The whole place is amazing and largely mysterious. Researchers don't know how old the caves are. In 2012, a scientific team identified a previously unknown mineral that they called rosiantonite, and during the more recent expedition, the team found a new species of blind cavefish. This is a creepy fish that lives in the cave's murky waters and has evolved over time to have no eyeballs. Scientists say it's almost definitely not the only unidentified creature living in the dark and dripping passageways beneath the jungle.
What do you think of these creepy creatures? Are they creepy or do you like them? Let me know in the comments below.
Number 8. Clock villages. An international team of scientists has discovered ancient villages in the Amazon that were built 700 years ago. But it's not the age that has the researchers excited.
The curious thing about the villages is that they were laid out to look like clocks. In Brazil's Acre state, villages from 1300 AD may have been made by early Native Americans to mimic the cosmos.
The discovery was made while researchers used lasers to scan through the forest canopy. They were creating a three-dimensional map of the landscape beneath and detected circular villages. The villages would be impossible to see without the technology, and at the edges of these circular settlements are high banks of earth, kind of like the markings on a clock, or like the rays of the sun. Researchers aren't really sure what these rays were used for, but they think the villages were likely organized to track the movements of celestial bodies. Each of the 35 villages that were discovered has up to 32 mounds arranged in a nearly perfect circle. The mounds may have been used to indicate certain times of the year, with each one pointing in the direction of a certain star or planet. When that planet lined up with the mound of Earth, it would have indicated a season or a special day for celebration. But unfortunately, all scientists can do now is guess. Nobody knows for sure what happened to the people who lived in these villages. since they've been gone for centuries. Number 7. The Legend of Paititi. For almost 2 decades, French archaeologist and adventurer Thierry Jamin has been exploring the jungles of southern Peru. He's been searching for the legendary lost city of Paititi, but unfortunately for him and everyone else in the world, he hasn't found it. The search for the lost city began a very long time ago. In 1979, a pair of French-Peruvian researchers discovered the mystery settlement of Mameria in the Peruvian Amazon. This became the first real evidence that the Inca not only lived in the Andes Mountains, but also in the lower jungle.
The city of Mameria contained 15 square miles of houses built in the traditional Inca style. It was a grand discovery and one of the biggest motivators for adventurers to continue searching for Paititi.
Archaeologists know for a fact the Inca lived in the Amazon. So, other secret jungle cities must be around somewhere. It's just a matter of finding them. The legend of Paititi dates back to 1600 AD. An early missionary to South America named Andrés López wrote a letter about a city rich with gold hiding somewhere in the Peruvian Amazon. The letter was sent to the Vatican, and it was found in the Vatican archives 400 years later. It's not very good evidence, though, and the letter isn't that reliable, but the single mention of Paititi as a city of unimaginable wealth has been enough to convince people like Thierry Jamin to spend their careers searching for it. Number 6. The underground city of Acacor. The Amazon jungle is, in all likelihood, home to dozens of lost cities, likely a lot that nobody's even heard of. And one of the secret Amazonian settlements is a place called Acacor. Legend has it that Acacor was unique and that the entire city was located beneath the forest floor. Modern archaeologists say the city never existed, nor did its subterranean citizens. Still, though, explorers have died trying to find it.
The city of Acacor was made famous by Tatunka Nara in 1972. He was a rather eccentric man who claimed to be a descendant of the ancient society.
He was eager to show the outside world the entrance to the still hidden city of Acacor, and allegedly went on several expeditions throughout the 70s. But people on the expeditions kept on dying, and none of them came back with proof of the underground metropolis. Tatunka Nara was initially discovered by German photojournalist Karl Brugger in a market in Brazil. The journalist then documented Nara's bizarre story in a book that he titled The Chronicle of Acacor. And after that, the city briefly exploded in popularity with adventurers. According to what Nara said, his people, the Uga Mongulala, were chosen by the gods after they suddenly left the planet in the year 10,481 BC. The Uga Mongulala were chosen to keep records of all earthly activity until the gods returned. Weirdly enough, the 2008 Indiana Jones movie called Kingdom of the Crystal Skull involved a city named Acacor. It's likely whoever came up with the city for the movie heard about Acacor and changed just one letter. These days, nobody knows what happened to Tatunka Nara. Many of those who joined him on trips into the jungle to find the entrance perished, and soon the notion of a buried civilization in the Amazon was dismissed as a hoax. It's been 50 years, and not a shred of evidence has been found to confirm Nara's story.
Could there really be an entire civilization of people living underground in subterranean tunnels? Let me know what you think down below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Now, on to number 5.
Number 5. Rock art of the Venezuelan jungle. Researchers from the UCL Institute of Archaeology recently mapped an impressive collection of rock engravings in Venezuela. The engravings, also known as petroglyphs, date back to approximately 2,000 years ago.
The panel found in Venezuela is positively massive, showing at least 93 individual petroglyphs. The largest of all the carved images is a horned snake that's almost 100 feet long.
The ancient history of this part of the Amazon is poorly understood. Early Jesuit priests who visited the area reported that it was the home of a mysterious ancient tribe called the Adoles. These days, though, there aren't many people living in the area, and all that remains of the ancient inhabitants are crude drawings on rock walls. The author of the recent study from UCL, Dr. Philip Ryris, said that the rock art is very similar to rock art found farther away in the jungles of Brazil and Colombia, suggesting some kind of cultural connection. People living hundreds of miles away in completely different parts of the jungle were making the same pictographs on cliff walls. So, does this mean there was a much larger culture connected across the ancient jungle prior to the appearance of Europeans? And if it's true, where did these ancient people go? And why did they fracture into smaller kingdoms and remote jungle tribes? Number 4. The Chacha Boya live. The Chacha Boya were the fearless cloud warriors of the Amazonian sky forest. They built fortified hilltop strongholds overlooking villages that swept down the sides of cliffs and into the shade of high forests. But not much is known about the history of these people before the Spanish arrived. When the Spanish came face to face with the Chacha Boya, they were shocked. The Spanish described them as having pale skin and looking nothing like the other indigenous populations they'd seen in South America. They were very intriguing to the Spanish explorers. But in the end, that didn't stop the conquistadors from annihilating them. Scientists always assumed the Chachapoya were made extinct by the Spanish invaders, but a new study is saying something completely different. The genetic history of modern Peruvians has been traced back to the days of the Chachapoya. Scientists from the Max Planck Institute were conducting investigations in the ancient Chachapoya region when they came across people who still speak the Chachapoya dialect. Intrigued, genetic researchers then traveled between small villages and took saliva samples from volunteers. They were mostly interested in the people who spoke Amazonian Quechua, the language of the Chachapoya. And when they analyzed the DNA samples, scientists found that the genetic profiles were unique to the region. They were extremely different from the genetic profiles of people who lived more in the central Inca territory. To make this as simple as possible, scientists confirmed a unique genetic profile among the indigenous people who inhabit the region where the Chachapoya used to live. Maybe these humble villagers aren't the legendary cloud warriors of 500 years ago, but they do seem to carry the Chachapoya bloodline. Number 3. The Monte Grande Pyramid. Deep in the Amazon rainforest of Peru, there is an extremely steep hill stretching across 2 acres of land. If you were looking at it without knowing anything, you'd assume it was nothing but a boring lump of earth. And that's the exact reason it was ignored for centuries. Farmers even build houses on the chunk of land today, not really thinking anything of it. But this hill is very special. The farmers who built their houses on the land kept finding shards from old pots as they began to dig up the soil. They kept uncovering utensils used over 1,000 years ago. In 2010, archaeologist Quirino Oliveira turned the hill into an archaeological site. Soon after, it was discovered that Monte Grande Hill wasn't just some steep mound of earth. It was an overgrown pyramid. It was dated to 3,000 years ago, built by a forgotten civilization, and it was left alone for so long that as the earth changed and the weather shifted, it was completely overgrown. This was a massive discovery 13 years ago, and one not many people are aware of. The Monte Grande Pyramid is hard physical proof of an ancient civilization that thrived in the Amazon. Not just a recent civilization from a few centuries ago either, but one that lived a millennium before Jesus Christ. Since the initial discovery, archaeologists have learned a lot. The unnamed society who prospered here was extraordinarily advanced. They began to build their fantastic monuments in 1000 BC, but likely settled the area in 3000 BC. And by the time they vanished, they were constructing palaces and government offices. They had walls to protect their people, and there was even a grid-pattern neighborhood like a modern suburb that spread along the riverbank. They also participated in trade with other faraway and unknown societies. Scientists call these people the Mayo Chinchipe, and their pyramid represents one of the most ancient and sophisticated monuments anywhere in the Americas. How many other undiscovered pyramids do you think are hiding beneath overgrown forests? Share your thoughts in the comments. Number 2. Dinosaurs of the Amazon. Long before mysterious civilizations were building pyramids in the jungle, dinosaurs ruled South America. And in 2004, scientists announced the discovery of dinosaur fossils in the Brazilian Amazon. Researchers from the Rio de Janeiro Federal University called it the first official proof that dinosaurs dominated the jungle, as they did everywhere else on Earth. The fossils were 110 million years old, and they came from what at the time was an entirely new genus of dinosaur, named Amazonsaurus marinensis. It was a big deal because at that point, paleontologists assumed it would be impossible to find dinosaur remains in the Amazon. They thought that the high humidity would cause fossils to decay far too rapidly. But with the discovery of the Amazonsaurus, which admittedly is a pretty cool name for a dinosaur, a new realm of possibility was opened up, and now scientists know they can hunt for fossils in the jungle. But what was the Amazonsaurus? It was an extremely small sauropod, one of the smallest that ever lived. It was an herbivore dinosaur with a long neck, and it measured only 30 feet long. Even though it weighed roughly 10 tons, it was significantly smaller than other sauropods like the Titanosaur. Number 1. A million missing Amazonians. A lot of different estimates have been coming out recently regarding the ancient population of the Amazon. A few years ago, scientists didn't think there were any big societies in the jungle, but now it's accepted that the Amazon was home to thriving populations of at least 1 million people. And other experts have guessed there were as many as 5 million people living across the jungle before the Spanish ever arrived. Recently, archaeologists from the University of Exeter came across the remains of mysterious earthworks and forgotten villages in the deep jungle of Brazil. Researchers analyzed charcoal remains and pieces of pottery excavated at the sites, dating the towns and villages back to about 1250 AD. Then, the villages ceased to exist around 1500 AD. That means that for 250 years, there were an estimated 4,500 active villages in the Amazon. Researchers discovered roughly 1,500 enclosed villages, but they say there were likely 3 times as many at one point. Crunching the numbers, scientists say at a bare minimum, there were 1 million people living in the Brazilian jungle 800 years ago. Then they all vanished. Scientists cannot, for the life of them, grasp what happened to the millions of people who lived in the jungle. Was it a natural disaster? Or could it have been a plague that wiped them out? What do you think happened to the 1 million people that once inhabited the Amazon jungle? Where did they go? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye!